Something crossed the sky over the northeastern United States in the middle of the day, and millions of people online immediately decided it was the end of the world. This is Unexplained News Update, and I'm Reese Halden. Today we have 3 stories that all live in the same strange territory. We start with fireballs and the science behind why meteor season keeps turning into doomsday panic. Then we look at a viral claim that 8 scientists and military figures died or vanished in suspicious ways, and what the evidence actually shows. And we close with a witness account from a forest in New Jersey, where a teenage Boy Scout says he looked up and saw something he still cannot explain, almost 30 years later. These are very different kinds of mystery. One is about nature being misread. One is about real tragedy being pulled into a theory that may not hold up. And one is a quiet personal encounter that never made headlines but never quite faded either. Let's get into it. Bright fireballs are real. The internet's reaction to them, though, is something else entirely. This spring, a series of dramatic fireball sightings lit up skies across the United States, and within hours, social media was full of UFO reports, end times warnings, and claims that something was being hidden. The actual explanation is a lot more straightforward, though perhaps no less impressive. According to NASA, the Northern Hemisphere enters what researchers call peak fireball season roughly from February through April. During this window, Earth's orbit carries it through denser concentrations of debris left behind by comets and asteroids. The result is more meteors, brighter meteors, and more chances for someone to look up at exactly the right moment. The most dramatic event in this current wave happened on March 17, 2026. A large daytime fireball crossed the sky over the northeastern United States and into Canada before breaking apart over Ohio. Daytime sightings are rare enough that this one genuinely shook people. Videos spread fast. Descriptions ranged from awe-inspiring to terrifying. After that, the American Meteor Society began logging additional fireball reports coming in from multiple regions, including Texas, the Southwest, and the Mid-Atlantic coast. Taken together, these reports painted a picture of an unusually active stretch of sky. But here is where it gets more complicated. The article from unexplained.co argues that the real story is not the meteors themselves. It is what happens in the hours after a sighting, when video clips reach social platforms before any expert can weigh in. Witnesses describe objects behaving strangely. Someone notices a silence before the boom. Someone else says it changed direction. The interpretation grows faster than the facts can travel. The piece is careful to note that the underlying sightings are genuine. People really did see something spectacular. The issue is the layer of meaning applied on top. The UFO readings, the doomsday signals, the sense that this must be more than a rock burning up in the atmosphere. There is something worth sitting with there. The fireball itself is a genuinely dramatic natural event. The fact that our first instinct is often to reach for something darker says as much about us as it does about the sky. The apocalypse reading, as the article puts it, is a human overlay, not a feature of the object. Coming up next, we move from fireballs to something much more unsettling, a viral theory that starts with real deaths and builds toward a question that does not have a clean answer. A viral UFO theory can start with real tragedy and still outrun the evidence. That is roughly what appears to have happened with a story that has been spreading through UFO and disclosure communities over the past several months. The claim goes like this: 8 people connected to science, aerospace, or defense have either died or disappeared over a relatively short period. The theory suggests these cases are linked, and that the link points toward UFO secrecy. The names at the center of this story include Nuno Loureiro, Carl Grilmer, and William Neal McCasland. Others named in the account include Frank Mywald, Anthony Chavez, Monica Reza, Melissa Casillas, and Jason Thomas. These are not made-up figures. Some of these cases do appear in the public record. The clearest documented example is Nuno Loureiro, a physicist connected to MIT's Plasma Science and Fusion Center. MIT publicly confirmed his death in December 2025. That part is not in dispute. William Neal McCasland appears to serve as the anchor of the larger narrative. He had a career that touched aerospace and defense, and his name has circulated widely in disclosure-adjacent discussions. But the article from unexplained.co is direct about this. The connection between these individuals and any coordinated UFO secrecy effort has not been proven. What the article does explore is how a list like this gains power. When you put 8 names together, especially names from high-profile institutions like NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, MIT, and Los Alamos, the list starts to feel like a pattern. The human brain is extremely good at finding patterns. It is less naturally good at asking whether the pattern is real or assembled. The piece also notes that congressional interest in UAP, or unidentified aerial phenomena, disclosure has added a layer of apparent legitimacy to stories like this one. Lawmakers have held hearings, whistleblowers have testified under oath. That is all real, but congressional attention does not confirm any specific conspiracy claim. It raises questions. The answers are still missing. This story deserves to be handled with care, and not just because the evidence is thin. These are real people. Some of them are gone. Their families exist. The fact that their deaths or disappearances have been pulled into a viral theory does not mean any individual case was anything other than what it appears to be on the record. So where does that leave us? The tragedy in at least some of these cases appears to be real. The covert explanation has not been established. Those two things can both be true at the same time. From a wide, public-facing conspiracy, we now move into something far more personal. One witness, one night in the woods, and one object that left no trace except in memory. New Jersey's Pine Barrens have a reputation. Locals know it as the home of the Jersey Devil, a creature more legend than fact, and as a stretch of forest dense and quiet enough to feel like it belongs to a different century. It is exactly the kind of place where unusual things feel believable. In spring of 1998, a group of Boy Scouts was camping in Lebanon State Forest, in the southern part of New Jersey. One of the scouts, identified only as Tom, was a teenager at the time. What he says he saw that night became a story he carried for decades. According to Tom's account, shared on episode 342 of the UFO Chronicles podcast, published July 13, 2025, he was outside the campsite when the sounds of the forest went silent. Not quiet, silent. No insects, no wind movement, nothing. And then he looked up. He describes what he saw as a huge black triangle with 3 lights, one at each corner, moving slowly and without any sound overhead. He says there was an aqua blue haze around or beneath it. He also describes something harder to explain, an impression, almost like a thought that wasn't his own, a sense of being observed or communicated with. He has called it something like a telepathic feeling, though he admits he is not sure what word fits. Tom also mentioned a later experience in 2002 that added another layer to his personal history with unexplained sightings. The article does not go into extensive detail on that second event, but it notes the pattern as part of what makes Tom's account particularly unusual. The article from unexplained.co is careful throughout. It presents Tom's account as compelling and detailed, but it also states clearly that there is no publicly documented physical evidence for the 1998 sighting. No photos, no radar records, no corroborating witnesses named. The piece holds the account at the edge of belief without pushing it over. That is actually one of the more interesting things about the Black Triangle category of UFO reports. It is one of the most consistently described shapes in modern sighting accounts, appearing in reports from dozens of countries over several decades. Whether that reflects a real object, a shared cultural image, or something about how the human eye and brain process low-light aerial shapes at night is still an open question. What Tom's account offers is something quieter than a grand theory. It is one person's memory of one night, still vivid almost 30 years later. Whatever was above those pines, real or imagined, it stayed with him. And in a genre full of sweeping claims, that kind of small, personal strangeness can be the most affecting kind. That brings us to the end of tonight's stories. 3 stories, 3 very different angles on the same basic human habit, looking at something we don't fully understand and reaching for an explanation. Sometimes the explanation is science, and the spectacle is still worth appreciating even after the mystery is gone. Sometimes the explanation is grief and pattern recognition, and the most honest thing we can say is that we don't know yet. And sometimes there is no explanation at all, just a memory of standing in a quiet forest and feeling like the sky was watching back. None of those outcomes are failures. They are just different kinds of not knowing. And that, in a lot of ways, is what this show is built around. If you find value in this kind of careful, curious reporting on unexplained stories, I'd really appreciate it if you followed Unexplained News Update wherever you listen to podcasts. Leaving a rating or a review also makes a genuine difference. It helps other people who are curious about the same things find the show. I'm Reese Halden. Stay curious and stay grounded. We'll be back with more